The morning still held the cold the night had left behind. That particular Amazon cold that lives in the mist above the ground, in the smell of wet earth and green things, in the way the air sits heavy and damp before the sun has had time to burn it off. Donna Irachema had been awake since before the light. That was simply how her mornings worked, had worked for as long as she could remember. Out before dawn, hands in the soil, collecting what the forest offered before the heat of the day changed everything. She was crouched near the edge of the clearing, fingers working through a cluster of medicinal herbs she'd been tending for decades, when she heard it. Not a sound from the forest exactly, more like a sound arriving from the forest, directed, intentional. A sharp, bright cry that cut through the morning quiet and landed differently than bird calls usually do. She turned. The blue macaw was standing less than 3 meters away from her, not perched, standing on the ground, which is not where blue macaws belong, and somewhere in the part of Donna Irachema's mind that had spent a lifetime learning to read the forest. That detail registered immediately as wrong. At the bird's feet, half hidden in the grass and shadow, was the chick, small, still, eyes closed. The macaw wasn't calling anymore. It had gone completely quiet the moment she turned around, as if the cry had been a summons, and now that she had answered it, there was nothing left to say. It stood there with its chest heaving slightly, its electric blue feathers catching the early light, and it looked at her with those large, dark eyes that macaws have, eyes that always look like they are thinking something they've decided not to share. Donna Irachema did not move for a long moment. In all her years inside the Amazon, she had seen things that people from the city would not believe if she told them. She had seen the forest behave in ways that had no easy explanation. She had learned that the living world, if you are patient enough and quiet enough, sometimes crosses lines you didn't expect it to cross. But a blue macaw bringing a grounded chick to a human being and standing there waiting, that was different. That was something else entirely. She lowered herself slowly to her knees. The macaw opened its wings, a quick, hard spread, a warning that was unmistakable in any language. Donna Irachema stopped, held still, let the silence do the work. The birds somewhere above them in the canopy kept singing. The distant sound of water kept moving, and then the macaw folded its wings again, and the two of them held each other's gaze across the morning air for what felt like a very long time. "All right," the elder seemed to decide. "All right. My name is Daniel, and this channel exists for stories that happen in the places most of us will never go, between species that don't share a language but find a way to speak anyway. If you believe the natural world still holds things that can stop you in your tracks, subscribe. I'll keep bringing you proof that it does." She reached out her hand. The macaw's eyes tracked the movement exactly, the head tilting slightly, the body tensing again, but it held its ground. It allowed the approach. Those old hands, lined and darkened by decades of forest, sun and river wind and soil, reached slowly toward the chick in the grass and cupped around it with the kind of careful gentleness that only comes to people who have spent their lives handling fragile things. The chick was too light. That was the first thing she registered, the weight or the absence of it, the way a sick creature conserves everything it has by becoming somehow less present in the world. She brought it close and looked. The eyes were half open but unfocused. The breathing was shallow and fast. The feathers, which should have shone that impossible blue, even in their early unfinished state, looked dull and slightly wrong, like a color that's been left out in the rain. Nothing broken, as far as she could tell. No obvious wound. Just a small body running out of what it needed to keep going. The macaw took one step forward. Donna Irachema stayed still and let it come. The bird's beak came close to the chick, not aggressive, not territorial, but with the careful, deliberate attention of a mother performing an inspection, checking the inventory of her own child. It made a sound then, low and strange. Nothing like the bright calls macaws are known for. More like a murmur, more like a question, with the answer already known. Donna Irachema understood that she needed to move quickly. She rose to her feet, the chick cradled against her chest, and walked toward the entrance of the hut. She did not look back. She had decided, in the way that people who trust their instincts decide things, that looking back was not what this moment required. She heard the footsteps behind her, on the ground, unhurried, following. The macaw walked into the village at her heels, step by step across the packed earth between the trees and the hut, as if it had been doing this its entire life. Inside, the light was different. Filtered through the woven walls and the thatched roof, it came in softer, warmer, turned golden by the dry grass above. Donna Irachema prepared a corner of the floor, a bed of dry leaves, flat and layered, the kind of surface she had made before for other small broken things she had been asked by the forest to care for. She placed the chick there with both hands, taking her time, making sure the position was right. She found the clay bowl she kept near the door and filled it with water from the clay jar, wet the tip of her finger, brought it slowly to the chick's beak. Nothing. The beak did not respond. She waited, tried again. 1 drop, 2. On the 3rd attempt, something changed. The beak moved, barely the tiniest reflex, but it moved. At the entrance of the hut, the macaw tilted its head. It had not come fully inside, not yet. It stood at the threshold with its body half in the morning light and half in the warm shadow of the interior, watching with that focused, almost unnerving attention that made Donna Irachema feel, as she worked, that every one of her gestures was being evaluated, not judged, evaluated, the way you watch a doctor when your child is on the table, looking for signs that the hands know what they're doing. She kept working. Water, warmth, silence. The kind of silence you only get in the deep interior, where the noise of the outside world has been replaced by something else. The close sound of breathing, the soft rustle of leaves, the occasional drip of water from the roof. Donna Irachema had spent most of her 8 decades in exactly this kind of quiet, and she moved through it the way she moved through the forest, without fighting it, without filling it unnecessarily. The chick's breathing shifted. Gradually, incrementally, the shallow, frantic pace gave way to something slower and deeper. The chest still rose and fell too fast, but with more authority now, more intention. The feathers seemed to change, or maybe the light changed, or maybe Donna Irachema was only hoping. But something about the small body on the leaf bed began to feel less like an ending, and more like a pause. The macaw crossed the threshold, 1 step, then another, until it was beside the chick, head lowered, beak resting with infinite gentleness on the tiny body. In the way that only a parent touches a child they thought they might lose, Donna Irachema pulled back to give the pair space, and sat at the edge of the room with her hands in her lap, watching. There are moments in a life when you understand, without being told, that you are not the center of the story, that you have been the instrument, the path that something needed in order to get from one place to another, and that your role now is to step aside and witness the thing you helped make possible. This was one of those moments. Donna Irachema knew it immediately. Have you ever had a moment with a wild animal that you couldn't explain? Something that made you question where the line between instinct and understanding really is? Leave it in the comments. I want to read them. The night came in slowly, the way it always does in the Amazon. First, a shift in the quality of the light, the green of the forest deepening toward blue, then a change in the air, a drop in temperature that comes almost as a surprise. The way cold can surprise you even when you knew it was coming. Then, the forest's nighttime voice, the frogs, the insects, the far sounds of water, layering over each other until the darkness felt dense with life. Donna Irachema did not sleep. She kept her place beside the chick, changing the leaf bed when it needed changing, wetting the beak at regular intervals, tracking each breath with the attention that only people who have tended the sick through the night know how to sustain. That particular alertness that isn't anxious, just present, just absolutely, completely present. The macaw did not leave. It stayed through the dark hours in the corner nearest the chick, those large eyes open and watching. The blue feathers dimmed to something almost grey in the lamplight. Occasionally the two of them, the bird and the woman, would look at each other across the small space. There was nothing to say, nothing that words would have improved. There was only the shared understanding of two beings who had each chosen, for the same reason, to stay. Toward the end of the night, in that dark stretch before dawn, when the world is at its quietest, the chick moved. It wasn't much, a small shift of the body, a repositioning on the leaf bed that required effort and coordination it hadn't had the night before. But the macaw registered it before Donna Irachema did, stepping forward quickly, head tilted low, eyes intent on the chick. It made that low murmuring sound again, that private, unhurried communication between a mother and a child. Donna Irachema smiled. Dawn entered the hut the way it always did, slowly, then all at once, the thin morning light thickening to gold, filling the space from the roof down. The chick opened its eyes, fully this time, present, awake, taking in the inside of the hut with the focused look of a creature re-inhabiting itself after a long absence. The macaw touched its beak to the chick's head. The chick answered in a thin, high sound, small and unsteady, but real. Voice returning, life announcing itself again. Donna Irachema stayed where she was. There are things you do not interrupt, and this was one of them. She had been the hands the mother chose when she had nowhere else to turn. That was her part, and it was enough. Then the chick tried to stand. The legs trembled under the weight of the small body. It went sideways, tried again. The macaw stood nearby, not helping, not pulling back, just present in the way that teaches better than anything else can. On the third attempt, the chick's legs held. For a few seconds it stood there, shifting its weight from foot to foot, the unsteady balance of something finding its way back into the world. The macaw was completely still beside it. No call, no movement, just the quiet acknowledgement that the worst had passed. Donna Irachema watched from the entrance with her hands folded in her lap. The face that decades of forest sun had marked, carrying an expression that was not pride, not exactly relief, something deeper and harder to name, the recognition of someone who has been part of something larger than themselves and knows it without needing to say so. The chick took its first step, then another. The macaw followed, wing brushing wing, matching the slow pace. They came toward the entrance together, moving into the growing morning light, those two shades of blue, the deep cobalt of the mother and the softer, still-forming blue of the chick, catching the sun as they reached the threshold. Donna Irachema stepped aside. At the entrance, before stepping out into the morning, the macaw stopped. It turned and looked directly at her, that full, still, unhurried look, the one that had first crossed the clearing when the morning was cold and everything was uncertain. It held that gaze for several seconds, without moving, without blinking. Then it turned back to the chick, spread its wings slowly, and they went out together into the trees. Donna Irachema stood in the entrance of her hut for a long time after they disappeared, watching the line of the forest. The day was fully awake now, the birds loud, the air warming, the river audible in the distance. She went back inside, gathered the leaf bed and the clay bowl, put fresh water on. A normal morning at the edge of the Amazon. There are encounters that ask nothing from you in return. They arrive, they change something that doesn't have a name, and they leave behind only the quiet certainty that something true passed through. Donna Irachema did not save a chick that morning. She answered a request. And that makes all the difference. If this story found something in you, leave a like and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that the world still works this way. Subscribe if you want to stay. There are more stories coming.